Section: The Beginning. The dense woods of Deep Gap, North Carolina, miles from Salisbury, became a crime scene on December. A hiker, Robert Jenkins, stumbled upon the disturbing sight, the nearly naked body of a middle-aged man partially concealed among fallen leaves. The victim lay face up, with 2 distinct bullet holes in his head. This was Victor Gunnarsson, a 40-year-old Swedish immigrant. The victim was wearing only underwear, despite temperatures in the low 30s. Detective Mark Thompson of the Watauga County Sheriff's Department noted in his report, "No wallet, no identification, nothing to immediately tell us who he was." The medical examiner, Dr. Eleanor Phelps, determined death had occurred approximately 24 to 48 hours earlier. The cause: 2 .22 caliber bullets fired at close range directly into the skull. The precision of these wounds suggests someone with knowledge of firearms, Dr. Phelps explained. The first shot entered just behind the right ear, the second just above the left ear. Either would have been fatal. Tire tracks leading to the secluded location indicated the killer had driven the body there after the murder. Fibers found on Gunnarsson's body didn't match his clothing, suggesting he was wrapped in something during transport. In Salisbury, 86 miles east, Gunnarsson's apartment at 715 Fairmont Avenue sat undisturbed. His wallet still on the dresser, his Swedish passport in the nightstand drawer. His car, a blue 1987 Volvo, remained parked outside. There were no signs of struggle, suggesting Gunnarsson had left willingly with someone he knew. "We found his appointment calendar open on the kitchen table," said Detective James Roberts of the Salisbury Police Department. The last entry simply read, "Meet L, 7 p.m. on December 3rd. As investigators worked to identify the body found in Deep Gap, a woman named Kay Weden grew increasingly concerned. Her boyfriend of 3 months, Victor Gunnarsson, hadn't answered her calls since Friday evening. On Monday, December 6, when detectives finally identified the body through fingerprints, they arrived at Kay's door with the tragic news. "She collapsed when we told her," recalled Officer Sarah Mitchell. But when she regained her composure, the first words out of her mouth were, "It was Lamont. I know it was Lamont." Section 2, The Swedish Connection. Victor Gunnarsson's life began in Asida, Sweden, on March 31, 1953. The son of a factory worker, he developed strong right-wing political views as a young adult. By 1984, at age 31, he had joined the European Workers' Party, EWP, the Swedish branch of the controversial LaRouche movement known for its anti-socialist stance. Victor kept pamphlets and newspapers from the EWP all over his apartment in Stockholm, said former EWP member Eric Lindstrom. He was particularly vocal about his opposition to Prime Minister Olof Palme's socialist policies. On February 28, 1986, at 11:21 p.m., Swedish Prime Minister Olof Palme and his wife Lisbeth were walking home from the Grand Cinema on Sveavägen Street in central Stockholm. A lone gunman approached from behind and fired a single .357 Magnum round into Palme's back. The 59-year-old Prime Minister died almost instantly on the sidewalk. The assassin fled down a side street and disappeared into the night. Swedish police, desperate for leads in their highest-profile case ever, brought Victor Gunnarsson in for questioning on March 8th. Detective Superintendent Hans Ulvebro noted that Gunnarsson had made public statements against Palme and had no verifiable alibi for the night of the murder. "We found anti-Palme literature in his residence," Ulvebro explained. An eyewitness, Leif Ljungholm, placed someone matching Gunnarsson's description near the scene around the time of the shooting. On March 12th, police brought Gunnarsson in again. By March 17th, they formally detained him as a suspect, but their case began to crumble when Ljungholm's eyewitness testimony proved unreliable. The .357 Magnum murder weapon was never found in Gunnarsson's possession. On April 11, 1986, authorities released Gunnarsson due to insufficient evidence, but the damage to his reputation was done. Swedish media had already labeled him as 33-åringen, the 33-year-old, making him instantly recognizable throughout the country. Section 3, Escape to America. The aftermath of the Palme investigation turned Victor Gunnarsson's life upside down. In Stockholm, where he had once moved freely, he now faced constant public scrutiny. People pointed and whispered. Employers refused to hire him. The European Workers' Party had expelled him in 1985, leaving him without even that community. His phone was tapped for months after his release, said Gunnarsson's sister, Margareta. Police cars would park outside his apartment. Newspapers published photos of him buying groceries, getting his mail. It was harassment. By 1991, after 5 years of this treatment, Gunnarsson made the decision to leave Sweden entirely. On September 12, 1991, he boarded SAS Flight 937 from Stockholm to New York, carrying just 2 suitcases containing all his worldly possessions. In the United States, Gunnarsson first stayed with distant relatives in Cleveland, Ohio, before making his way south to North Carolina in early 1992. Why North Carolina? A cousin suggested the mild climate and lower cost of living might suit him. He settled in Salisbury, a small city located 40 miles northeast of Charlotte. On March 1, 1992, he signed a lease at the Fairmont Garden Apartments, paying $395 monthly. He found work at Sunshine Cycle Shop repairing bicycles, a job that required minimal English skills. Victor was quiet but friendly, remembered shop owner Gerald Matthews. He kept his head down, did good work. Sometimes customers would hear his accent and ask where he was from. He'd just say Europe and change the subject. For nearly 2 years, Gunnarsson lived a simple, under-the-radar existence. He joined the YMCA, where he swam laps 3 times weekly. He attended services at St. John's Lutheran Church. He sent postcards to his family in Sweden describing his peaceful new life. What he didn't know was that his newfound stability was about to be shattered. Section 4. A new relationship. In September 1993, Victor Gunnarsson met Kay Weden at the Salisbury Farmers Market on a Saturday morning. Kay, 49, worked as a nurse at Rowan Regional Medical Center. Divorced with 2 adult children, she was immediately drawn to the quiet Swede with the gentle manner. He was different from most men I'd known, Kay later told investigators. Soft-spoken, cultured. He'd make me Swedish pancakes and tell stories about growing up in Northern Europe. Their relationship progressed quickly. By October, Victor was spending several nights a week at Kay's home on Mitchell Avenue. They attended community events together. Victor met Kay's mother, 77-year-old Catherine Miller, who lived alone in a small house on North Shaver Street, just 2 miles from Kay. Mom liked Victor, Kay recalled. She said he was a gentleman, always offering to help with chores around her house. What neither Victor nor Kay realized was that their budding romance had caught the attention of Lamont Underwood, Kay's former fiancé. Underwood, 44, had served as a police officer with the Salisbury Police Department from 1976 to 1986, leaving the force after accusations of excessive force during an arrest. Since then, he had worked as a private security consultant. Kay had ended her 2-year relationship with Underwood in July 1993, just months before meeting Victor. The breakup had been Kay's decision, prompted by what she described as Underwood's increasingly controlling behavior. He wanted to know where I was every minute, Kay explained. He'd check my odometer to see if I'd driven farther than I said I had. He'd show up at the hospital during my shifts to surprise me. Underwood hadn't accepted the breakup gracefully. According to Kay's coworkers, he called the hospital nursing station repeatedly. He sent flowers daily until Kay asked him to stop. He parked across from her house on multiple occasions, sometimes sitting there for hours. We saw his car outside the staff entrance at least 3 times in October, confirmed Susan Reynolds, head nurse at Rowan Regional. Once I asked him to leave, and he flashed his old police badge at me saying he had official business with Kay. By November 1993, Underwood had obtained detailed information about Victor Gunnarsson. Neighbors reported seeing a man matching Underwood's description taking photographs of Victor's apartment building and his blue Volvo. Phone records would later show that Underwood had called the Sunshine Cycle Shop 5 times, hanging up without speaking. On November 18th, Underwood confronted Victor and Kay outside a restaurant in downtown Salisbury. Restaurant owner Michael Chen witnessed the encounter. This big guy approaches them, starts pointing his finger in the Swedish guy's face, Chen recalled. I heard him say something like, "You don't know who you're dealing with." The woman was trying to pull him away. The confrontation ended without violence, but it clearly shook Victor. Kay later told friends that Victor had asked detailed questions about Underwood's background, seeming particularly concerned when he learned Underwood had been a police officer. Section 5. Tragedy strikes. On November 28, 1993, at 10:17 a.m., Kay Weden arrived at her mother's house on North Shaver Street for their weekly post-church lunch. What she found was a scene of horror. Catherine Miller lay dead on her living room floor, 2 bullet wounds in her chest. The front door was unlocked but showed no signs of forced entry. Nothing was stolen, Detective Curtis Reynolds noted. Not her wallet with $87 cash, not her wedding ring, not the silver collection visible on the dining room shelf. This wasn't a robbery gone wrong. The medical examiner determined Catherine had been killed between 6 and 8 p.m. the previous evening. Neighbors reported hearing what might have been gunshots around 7:30 p.m., but no one had investigated. Most telling was what officers found in Catherine's appointment book, Lamont coming by with pie. When questioned, Underwood admitted visiting Catherine, but claimed he left at 7:15 p.m. with her very much alive. "She always liked my pecan pies," Underwood told detectives. "I was just being neighborly. Kay's decision to end our relationship shouldn't affect my friendship with her mother." Underwood provided a receipt from Walmart dated 8:03 p.m. as his alibi, claiming he went directly from Catherine's house to the store 7 miles away. The receipt showed purchases of motor oil and windshield washer fluid. As Kay dealt with the shock of her mother's murder, Victor Gunnarsson stayed close by her side. He attended Catherine's funeral on December 1st, helped organize the reception afterward, and spent every night at Kay's house to ensure she wasn't alone. "Victor was my rock during that awful week," Kay later testified. "He handled phone calls, brought food, walked the dog. I couldn't have managed without him." On Friday, December 3rd at approximately 6:30 p.m., Victor told Kay he needed to run to his apartment to pick up clean clothes and check his mail. He promised to return within an hour for dinner. When he hadn't returned by 8:30 p.m., Kay called his apartment repeatedly with no answer. By 10 p.m., concerned, she drove to the Fairmont Garden Apartments but saw no sign of Victor or his car. The next morning, at 7:45 a.m., 2 hikers in Deep Gap, Watauga County, discovered a body later identified as Victor Gunnarsson. The location was a secluded turnout off Highway 421, known locally as Lover's Lane. Section 6, The Investigation. Detective Mark Thompson of the Watauga County Sheriff's Department initially had little to go on. The victim carried no identification. The body had been stripped to underwear, likely to remove evidence. 2 distinct tire track patterns were found at the scene, one from a mid-sized passenger car, another from what appeared to be a pickup truck with custom tires. After identifying the body through fingerprints on December 6, Thompson contacted the Salisbury Police Department, where Detective James Roberts filled him in on Gunnarsson's connection to Kay Weden and the recent murder of Catherine Miller. "That's when the case really broke open," Thompson recalled. 2 murders connected to the same woman just days apart. That's not coincidence. Forensic evidence from the Gunnarsson crime scene included carpet fibers adhering to the victim's skin, consistent with him being wrapped in carpeting during transport. Soil samples from the turnout didn't match soil found on Gunnarsson's bare feet, confirming he was killed elsewhere and moved to Deep Gap. The bullet fragments recovered from Gunnarsson's skull were .22 caliber, fired from a revolver, based on the absence of shell casings at the scene. The wounds indicated the killer stood directly behind the victim, placing the gun within inches of the head, a technique taught in police firearms training. When investigators searched Victor's apartment, they found his passport, wallet with $142, and all his clothing still there. His appointment calendar on the kitchen table showed an entry for December 3rd, at 7 p.m. His car keys were missing, as was his Volvo. On December 8th, police located Gunnarsson's blue Volvo in the long-term parking lot at Charlotte Douglas International Airport, 43 miles from Salisbury. Parking records showed the car had entered the lot at 11:42 p.m. on December 3rd, the night Victor disappeared. Security camera footage was too grainy to identify the driver, who paid the parking fee in cash. Detectives turned their attention to Lamont Underwood. When questioned about his whereabouts on December 3rd, Underwood claimed he was at home all evening, a claim his current girlfriend, Barbara Taylor, initially corroborated. "I was watching TV with Barbara," Underwood told detectives. "We ordered pizza, watched Dallas, went to bed around 11, never left the house." But the investigation revealed inconsistencies. Underwood's phone records showed his home phone had been used to call a pizza place at 6:15 p.m., but his cell phone pinged towers near Gunnarsson's apartment between 7 and 9:30 p.m. At 10:45 p.m., his cell phone pinged a tower near Highway 421 in Deep Gap. On December 15th, Barbara Taylor recanted her alibi for Underwood after investigators confronted her with these phone records. "He made me lie," she admitted tearfully. "He left the house around 6:30, said he had business to take care of. When he came home after midnight, he was sweaty, agitated. He made me swear I'd say he was home all night." A search of Underwood's home and vehicles on December 16th yielded crucial evidence. In his garage, technicians found traces of blood matching Gunnarsson's type on a floor mat. In his Ford F-150 pickup, They discovered custom tires that matched the tracks at the Deep Gap scene. Most damning of all, in a locked safe in his bedroom closet, they found a .22 caliber Smith & Wesson revolver. Ballistics tests later confirmed this was the weapon used to kill Victor Gunnarsson. Section 7. Justice served. On December 18, 1993, police arrested Lamont Underwood for the murder of Victor Gunnarsson. On January 4, 1994, additional charges were filed against him for the murder of Catherine Miller, using ballistic evidence that matched the same .22 revolver to both crimes. Prosecutors built a timeline of Underwood's actions on December 3, 6:30 p.m., left his home telling Barbara he had business. 7 p.m., arrived at Gunnarsson's apartment, likely using the pretext of discussing Catherine's murder. 7:59 p.m., forced Gunnarsson to drive to a secluded location where he killed him. 9:10 p.m., transported the body, wrapped in a car carpet, to Deep Gap in his pickup truck. 10:45 p.m., disposed of the body at the turnout on Highway 421. 11:42 p.m., drove Gunnarsson's Volvo to Charlotte Airport parking to create confusion. 12:30 a.m., returned home to Barbara Taylor. The trial began on January 15, 1997, after 3 years of legal delays. District Attorney Robert Johnson laid out the state's case. "This is about a man who couldn't accept rejection," Johnson told the jury. When Kay Weden ended their relationship, Lamont Underwood, a former police officer, used his training and knowledge of criminal investigation to methodically eliminate everyone she loved. Johnson established the motive. Underwood killed Catherine Miller first, thinking Kay would turn to him for comfort. When instead she relied on Victor Gunnarsson, Underwood eliminated him, too. Defense attorney William Davies argued the evidence was circumstantial. The state has no eyewitnesses. They have no confession. They ask you to convict based on cell phone records and carpet fibers. That's not enough to send a man to prison for life. But the prosecution had one more bombshell. Barbara Taylor, now Underwood's ex-girlfriend, testified that in late November 1993, before the murders, she had overheard Underwood on the phone saying, first her mother, then her foreign boyfriend. "Then she'll see what happens when you cross me." After 8 days of testimony and 7 hours of deliberation, on January 24, 1997, the jury found Lamont Underwood guilty of first-degree murder in the deaths of both Catherine Miller and Victor Gunnarsson. Judge William Helms sentenced him to life imprisonment plus 40 years. Appeals followed. In January 2010, a judge in the U.S. District Court for the Western District of North Carolina ruled that Underwood had received ineffective counsel and ordered a new trial. However, this decision was overturned by the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Fourth Circuit in January 2011, which stated the evidence against Underwood was so overwhelming that his counsel's alleged lack of competence would have been immaterial. Lamont Underwood spent the remainder of his life at Marion Correctional Institution in North Carolina, where he died on December 23, 2018, at age 69. Victor Gunnarsson, who had fled one country to escape the shadow of an assassination he didn't commit, ultimately couldn't escape a killer's obsessive revenge in his adopted homeland. That concludes our investigation into the tragic murder of Victor Gunnarsson, a man who escaped the shadow of one assassination only to fall victim to another. I'm curious to know your thoughts. Do you think Underwood would have been caught if he hadn't been a former police officer who thought he knew how to commit the perfect crime? Share your opinions in the comments below. I want to sincerely thank you for watching this episode of X by X Confidential. Your support allows me to continue bringing these important stories to light. If you found this case as fascinating as I did, please take a moment to hit that like button. It really does help my channel grow. Don't forget to subscribe and click the notification bell so you never miss a new episode. Until next time, stay safe and remember, sometimes the truth is darker than fiction.